Okay. All right, good morning, everyone. This is Erace on April 1st, April Fool's Day of 2023. I am Nancy Moore, and I am located in New Orleans, Louisiana. And I'm going to read our mission statement, which is racism is the slogan of the group of race, which was formed in New Orleans in the summer of 1993. We seek ways through person-to-person communication to show that we are committed to treating all human beings with love, respect, empathy, compassion, and humility. Join us. Erace is an organization that does not espouse any political party. We have no religious affiliation. We believe in acceptance of all people and no personal attacks of any kind will be tolerated. We come with the intention to listen and learn and not to argue. We begin today by acknowledging that what we know as the United States is the ancestral and unceded territory of many indigenous peoples, and that there are many more nations and tribes that could be named here. Members of our meeting group today are on the lands of the Chitimacha and Choctaw in New Orleans, the Creeks and Cherokees in Atlanta, the Tonkawan, Lipan, and Apache and Comanche in Austin, the Lenape and the Piscataway in the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area, the Wampanoag and the Nipmuc peoples of Boston, the Kiowa, Mojave in Riverside, and the Lumbee in Fayetteville. We thank their ancestors for being stewards of these lands through the generations and through today. We need to protect and honor the history and people of these places despite centuries of colonial theft and violence. And we should always remember that we are still on indigenous land, and it will always be indigenous land. Okay. I'll start by everyone introducing themselves and telling where you're located and how long you've been coming to the Erace meeting as I see people on my screen. And I will start with Marion.
Good morning again,
there you go.
everyone. I'm Marion Lagarde, sitting here in cloudy New Orleans with the trees swaying in the background from the breeze. And I've been coming to the Erace discussion since June of 1993. It's good to see everybody this morning. Looking forward to the discussion.
All right. Thank you, Marion. Glenn. Glenn, are you there? Well, I guess we'll come back to Glenn. Phyllis.
Good morning, I'm Phyllis. I am in sunny New Orleans. And I've been coming to Erace since 2008.
Thank you. Louise.
Hi, I'm Louise. I'm in sunny Austin. Beautiful day. Been coming to Erace meetings for over a couple of decades, first in New Orleans, but now since Katrina here in Austin.
All right, thank you. Teresa.
Good morning. I'm coming to you from Fayetteville, North Carolina, and we are also stormy. And I've been coming since last August, and my emoji filter is how I felt when I found out that Trump was indicted.
Absolutely. Thank you. Larry.
Good morning. I'm Larry, and I started coming to Erace around 1995, and I'm here in New Orleans, and happy to be here this morning.
All right. Thank you. Beatrice.
Hi, good morning. I'm Beatrice, and I am here in East Point, Georgia, where we had thunderstorms this morning, but the sun is coming out. Glad to be with all of you and to see you. Since 1993, I've been coming to Erace. Yeah. Hey.
Thank you. Bill. Okay. Oh, Bill. Glenn? No Glenn. Okay. Well, I guess they've taken a break. They haven't
This
come
is
back.
Glenn
Okay,
from New
Glenn.
Orleans, and I've been coming to Erace since 1994. Glad to be here this morning. Thank
All
you.
right, thank you. Okay. All right, the format, and I don't see any newcomers, but I'll go over the format anyway. We ask that everyone put yourself on mute unless you're speaking. We go in order of a list, and to get on the list, you raise one finger. Okay, kind of wave it around so you catch my eye. We speak in order of the list. Please keep your comments to 2 minutes. I will be keeping time. Okay. Out of respect, do not interrupt the speaker. No side comments, no personal attacks, no name calling, no name calling. The point of the discussion is to listen, learn, and not argue. You can ask a clarifying question of the speaker by raising 2 fingers. Move it around so you get my attention. The purpose of a clarifying question is to ask, I didn't understand what you meant, or could you further explain what you meant by whatever the person said? Okay, clarifying questions do not require a long monologue, or questions that do not clarify as questions will not be allowed, and that person can go on the list. Okay. Only 2 clarifying questions are allowed per speaker. Okay. Also, if questions or crosstalk gets out of hand, we call point of order. Okay, we will go until roughly 11:10, 11:15, and then we will have a wrap up. At that point, everybody gets 1 minute. The difference is that if you haven't spoken before, you get the full 2 minutes. It is okay to pass. Okay, and that's it. All right, so the floor, Jean, you have been able to join us. Would you like to introduce yourself? You're still on mute, Jean. Jean? Would you like to introduce yourself? You're on mute. There you
Oh,
go.
I'm sorry, I didn't have my vocal on. I'm Jean Walker. I'm in Silver Spring, Maryland, and I've been attending the meetings for at least a year, sometime during the pandemic, and I'm always happy to been interested in the dialogue and everybody's opinion. Look forward to today's conversation.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
And
you.
Bill,
Oh, Nancy.
I'm Bill Ives, and I've been coming to race for 5 or 6 years. And I always learn something every time. I look forward to the discussion. A very thought-provoking article that Nancy shared. Thank you.
thank you, Bill. And I see Cindy has joined us. Cindy, would you like to introduce yourself? There she is.
Okay, now I'm here. Sorry about that. I didn't realize how long it took me to get downstairs and put away stuff and all that. I apologize. Won't happen again. I'm glad to be here. Glad to see you all. Looking forward to this discussion.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry for the lawnmower people showed up. So if you can hear that buzzing going on in the background, I'm sorry. But they showed up right before the meeting.
We don't hear.
started.
We don't hear nothing. We
You
don't
don't?
hear anything.
Okay,
No.
great. Okay. I brought the topic because of the Nashville shooting last week, which was horrific. And once again, I just do not understand why our elected officials do not do something to make, not that there aren't already millions of assault style weapons out there, but do something to limit the sale, prohibit the sale, background checks and different things that would make it harder for people to obtain these types of weapons. However, there's a lot of talk for me, listening on the radio about possible backlash against transgender people who already suffer enough discrimination as it is. And to hear that Tucker Carlson would say that the transgender movement is becoming militant and the transgender movement is against Christianity, which is totally against my beliefs, was just abhorrent. And so that's why I put the article, because I just want to hear everyone else's opinion. I don't agree with that. I'm just thinking about the people that listen to Tucker Carlson and what actions that they may take upon hearing words like this, you know, or what they could incite, what he could incite by having this type of thing. So the list is open. Teresa and then Jean. Thank you. Teresa? You're
Okay,
good.
thank you. So, Nancy, when you were talking about, I don't know why the elected officials don't do anything to could limit guns. They don't have any incentive to do that. And when you said that, that reminded me of something that both Chris Rock and Dave Chappelle both suggested. Chris Rock years ago said that if a bullet costed $5,000, there'd no longer be any unintentional person shot. You know, because if a bullet cost $5,000, people would be more thoughtful and they would settle their differences in a much different way. Dave Chappelle also suggested, hey, if all Black people got registered for guns, then you'd see some gun laws. Because the last time that there was comprehensive gun laws, I think it was back in the 60s in response to the Black Panthers, or the threat of what they thought Black Panthers were going to do. And then just last night, I was watching Bill Maher, and I did not realize that the Virginia, I think she's like lieutenant governor. She's a Jamaican woman who's a former Marine, whatever. But according to her, the highest, let me see if I can get this right, the fastest growing population of gun owners are Black women. And I thought, ooh, now that she's put that in the universe, whether it's true or not, I don't know. Maybe there will be. It's like, oh my God, Black women are getting armed. So I just wanted to share that in reference to what you just said about the guns part. And I'll just wait and see if I want to make another comment, but I don't have to
Okay.
be put back on the list right now.
All right. Well, thank you. Okay. Next we have Jean and then Bill.
Yeah, just before I went to bed last night, I
and
saw
Beatrice.
Trump made a statement that if he were elected, he would take action against the doctors who provide medical care to transgender people. So he's that's part of his platform, not just Tucker Carlson. I mean, it's ludicrous considering that only 1% of the gun mass shootings have been done by transgender people. Of all the, let's see, I wrote the statistics down, the 300 more mass shootings since 2009, only 1% are transgender. And, you know, it just, you know, Teresa's right in terms of the gun control. It make the bullets $5,000, and there won't be any problem, but we have idiots up in that Congress who are paid by NRA to stay there and do their job.
Thank you, Jean. Next we have Bill.
First of all, when Tucker Carlson said transgender people are enemy of Christianity, my reaction was, whose Christianity is he talking about? It's certainly not the Christianity of Jesus Christ. Jesus would not argue. My belief is that Jesus would not oppose transgender people. He would accept them as fulfilling their things. But and also, as someone said, less than 1% of the shooters are trans people, and almost all the shooters are straight white males. But anyway, there's 300. A few years ago, I read an article that said there's 360 million guns owned by private citizens in this country. I'm sure there are many more now. And they provide combined guns of the military and the police are 6 million guns. So private citizens a few years ago outgunned the police and military by 60-1. That's horrifying. And people like Tucker Carlson want to expand that ratio. They want people to have more guns. That's the symptom I heard from the right, who said the solution is to provide even more guns. So anyway, I was horrified by that.
Thank you, Bill. Would you like to get back on the list?
I'll wait.
You'll wait? Okay, I heard that comment last night on the news about the solution being more guns. And that was as bad as, what was that guy that said the only solution to a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with it?
It sounds like somebody from Texas.
Yeah, that. Okay, we have Beatrice and then Phyllis. Is anyone
Okay.
else like to be on the list?
Nancy, that was Wayne LaPierre when he was
Yes,
in charge of NRA with his daddy stuff. Yeah, I'm concerned about many things. One being that Carlson is saying that the manifesto has been hidden because it is conceals an obvious and undeniable targeting of Christians. You have to really watch people who make themselves victims and who use their religion or their understanding of their religion to support the othering of people, the marginalizing of people. And that is what is happening with trans people. People believe that we live in a binary world where gender is concerned, and we do not. And it's hard to accept that, but you have to, that's a reality. These are human beings, and trans young people with suicide ideation, all the things that happen to these young people, we cannot afford to waste them and to other them. And I think it's unfortunate. Our Georgia legislature has just passed one of those, no hormone affirming care. They've just passed one of those one of those laws. The governor just signed it because we're protecting children. Protecting them from what? From knowing who they are, looking in the mirror and seeing that who I see is who my truth is. Can you imagine all your life looking in the mirror and seeing somebody that's not you? What does that do to you? How can you other somebody like that? And that's what we do. And because we have got Georgia legislation, got what they wanted on guns. We have the permitless carry. Everybody can carry a gun everywhere. We have the 6-week birth heartbeat bill they call for abortion. They got that. So now they're going out to transgender youth. Crazy. It's crazy. I'll have more to say. We don't expand Medicaid. Oh no. We don't put a poverty index in our budget for schools. No, but we're going to deny trans children and their parents from getting the treatment. Can you imagine a parent feeling like that? It's just heartbreaking. And somebody like Tucker Carlson, the sad thing is that people listen to this man. They believe this man.
They do. You want to get back on the list?
I guess so. Yes, I think so.
Well,
Later.
you're
Later.
saying a lot, and
I'm going
it's
too
good
fast.
what you're saying. Okay, we have Phyllis next, and then the list is open. Does anyone else like to be on the list? Larry. Okay, so then we have Phyllis and Larry, and then I'll put Beatrice back on. Okay.
So,
Phyllis.
to address what Teresa said, it's one of those historical facts that always makes me giggle a little and realize just how white supremacy has been in the GOP for a long time. Because it was when the Panthers showed up armed, legally armed, at the Oakland courthouse that Ronald Reagan enacted gun laws in California, where he was the current governor at the time. So I love the pictures of the Panthers on those courthouse steps and just knowing how scared the white supremacists were by that. I want to point out that Jesus was not a Christian himself, ever. He was a practicing Jewish man until he died. And that Tucker Carlson is a lying liar. He speaks no truth ever. And he is dehumanizing transgender people in this current video that we're discussing. And that is one of the steps to genocide. That is one of the steps to eradicating a group of people. The other part of this is that the government is now involved. The party of small government is now involved in dictating healthcare for women through their anti-abortion legislations, and for transgender children and people, they are taking the power away from women and from parents to provide care for themselves and for their children, who allegedly parents are supposed to know what's best for their children by like what books they can read or what books shouldn't even be in their school. So it's only some parents who get any rights in this country right now, based on what the GOP is doing. We should all be very activated to bring these people out of power. Thanks.
Perfect, Phyllis. That was perfect. Okay, we have Larry and then Beatrice. Does anyone else like to be on the list? Okay, Larry, you're next.
You know, just for the record, it was stated one time that we don't talk about religion and Erace, but we certainly can't have it both ways and bring up topics pertaining to Christianity when it suits our cause, but otherwise reject any mentioning of religion or Christianity. And just again, to set the record straight in terms of Jesus not being a Christian and that he was a practicing Jewish man until he died, you know, that is not true. But anyway, relative to Tucker Carlson, and I want to try to limit my comments to Tucker Carlson, because certainly he does not speak for Christianity no more than an atheist or an unbeliever could define what Christianity is. But the transgender people are not a natural enemy of Christianity. In fact, the tenets of the Christian faith calls for Christianity to have compassion on transgender people. So, you know, there's this misconception that Christianity is hostile towards the LGBT community or transgender. That's not true. That's not true. But we do have our belief system, and our belief system is centered around morals. And it is unfair for someone to try to say what Christian morals ought to be, and then try to knock down the door of Christianity because what Christianity teaches does not line up with something that is deemed to be outside of Christianity. But the real,
Larry, would you like to get back on the list?
yes,
Okay, great. Okay, we have Beatrice, Phyllis, and then Larry. Would anyone else like to get on the list? Okay, Beatrice.
I just want to quickly say that I know in our legislature, before the non-hormone, before the bill against trans young people was passed, the parents, all the people who were coming forward about what would the damage this kind of legislation would do were either not heard, or if they were heard, people had already formed opinions, and their opinions were based on ignorance. As in this article where Candace Owens says that gender affirming surgery is mutilation. These are people who do not know what they are talking about, and they have decided to spread disinformation for a cause, which is an unjust, wrong cause. There were a lot of parents at the Georgia legislature who were in tears, and one of our legislators who is lesbian, she says this of herself, these people were in tears because they know that what they're doing is harming people. And it is short-sighted, it is for political gain. And it is heartbreaking to see that so much, for example, all right, let's see, what happened to this young person who did the crimes in Nashville? What happened to her in that school? How was she, what legacy of anger or whatever was she carrying, as well as she had emotional issues? Then, where did she get 7 guns? Why do we still have weapons of war on the streets? Why? I mean, it defies logic that they say the Uvalde policemen that stayed outside that classroom for 75 minutes, they were scared to go in because that boy had a weapon that they were afraid of. And they left those children on the floor bleeding and dying. It is unimaginable that a country like ours would not still be able to grapple with having so many weapons in people's hands, as well as now creating another group of people that we're going to assume are disposable. So Tucker Carlson, I mean, I don't look at him, but I listened to this. I mean, I read it. And it is just sad that he
Would you like to get back on the list, Beatrice? You're
I
very
don't think so. I'm wandering. I don't
okay.
thank you. I'm
All
only
right.
once a week, so I mean once a month, so I spend all my energy on y'all. I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you. We have Phyllis and then Larry. Would anyone else like to be on the list? Okay, Phyllis and Bill. Okay.
Okay, well, first of all, Jesus lived and died a Jewish man. That is historical fact. The early followers of the Jewish man Jesus were called Christians at some point, but they were a Jewish sect for many centuries until Rome made Christianity the official religion. And then they got they weren't persecuted anymore. And Paul came in and brought the Gentiles in. So yeah, the man Jesus was actually trying to reform Judaism. He wasn't trying to create a new religion, and he never practiced that religion. There were no churches during the time of Jesus. There were temples and synagogues. I think, well, I know the reason the board felt it necessary to say that we don't take any religious stances is because there's 2 things that happen in our meetings sometimes. One, it sounds like some people think that only religious people, specifically Christian people, have morals, and somehow being gay or transgender is immoral. And 2, we don't come here to be preached at by anybody from any religion, and we're trying to put a little cap on that. The legislatures and the people in them who are passing these 400 and some laws now, I've heard, have been put on the books or are attempting to be put on the books to persecute transgender people, they don't care about the lives of the children who might kill themselves because they can't live their truth. And it is absolutely naturally occurring in all parts of nature for there to be people and animals who do not subscribe to the binary, physically, spiritually, mentally. I imagine my time is up.
Yeah, I don't know if you'd like to get back on the list.
Maybe I'll let you know.
Okay, we have Larry and then we have Bill. So anyone else? I'm sure everybody has an opinion. I thought this would be very thought-provoking. Cindy? Okay, great. All
You
right,
know,
Larry?
if I said anything contrary to the tenets of Islam, I would expect that
And Jean?
I would expect that Glenn Abdullah would come behind me and correct me. And I think he would have that right and responsibility. And so, you know, sometimes when you open up a can of worms, you have to you just have to sometimes take the subject to another level. But in the Old Testament, the book of the Jews, God said through the prophet Jeremiah, the days will come when I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Judah, not a covenant like I made with their fathers when I brought them out of the land of Egypt. So Jesus came in to take out the old covenant and to usher in a new covenant. And that is what, when we take the Lord's Supper in Christianity, that is what we are remembering. So anyway, relative to what Tucker Carlson said, the enemy of Christianity is something called manifest destiny. Manifest destiny, that was a phrase that was coined in 1845, and it's the idea that the United States is destined and ordained by God to expand its dominion and spread democracy and capitalism across the entire North American continent. And the philosophy drove 19th century US territorial expansion, and it was used to justify the forced removal of Native Americans and other groups from their homes. And this belief even held the opinion that no other than God had ordained the white race to carry out this mission. And since the mission was void of any Christian morals, they used this concept of manifest destiny to indiscriminately slaughter and brutally enslave a people from the African continent and tell those people that the white people were ordained by God to do all of this. And they used—
Okay, Larry, your
All right.
time went up. I take it you want to get back on the list because we'd like to
Yes.
hear what you have to say, okay?
Yes, please.
All right. So we have Bill, Cindy, Jean, Larry. Does anyone else like to be on the list? Cheryl?
First of all, I agree with Larry that the concept of manifest destiny was a misuse of religion. It was fundamentally racist. I don't feel Christian religion is fundamentally racist. It's the misuse of it. But I want to say two things. This is all a distraction. As we know, it's a distraction. The Republicans are using this as a distraction while they steal wealth from the poor people and the middle class people and pass it on to rich donors. It's just a distraction. All this custom, they're not doing anything else but promote these cultural war distractions. And that's the sick thing about it. It is used to disguise trickle up economics.
Beatrice?
And also there's a Tucker Carlson, as you know, is hypocrite. He said privately that he hates Donald Trump. He despises him. And there had been a movement to circulating trucks with billboards quoting Tucker Carlson discussed with Donald Trump driving around Mar-a-Lago with these billboards with Tucker Carlson quotes about how much he hates the former president, which I don't even like to talk about by name. Anyway, I wanted to say, the main point I wanted to say is all a distraction away while they rob their voters and other people.
All right, Bill, you want to get back on the list?
I'll wait.
You'll wait? Oh, well, that's a different topic about how much money Trump has raised since he's been indicted. I mean, that's a whole different discussion. We have Cindy and Jean, Larry, Cheryl, and Beatrice. Okay, Cindy.
Okay. Over the years, I've taught several hundred small children. They come in every size and shape, and understanding what they acquire about beliefs, about race, about religion, and all of that comes from their parents. So if we have a whole bunch of racist parents, we'll have racist kids. It's not built in. And so how we can raise the next generation to accept comes a lot from the existing generation. It's not something that just appears out of nowhere. It's got to be, I mean, the good old love your neighbor as yourself stuff, which is Christian, but it's also universal, I think. So it's a shame that we've gotten so divided that Tucker Carlson and Donald Trump can have a major disagreement, and it affects all of us too much. I'd like to get rid of both of them. Enough.
Thank
wanted
you.
to rant.
Good. Okay, next we have Jean.
Yeah, like a couple of years ago, Pope Francis in the Catholic Church came out and said the LGBTQ plus people, it was not a crime, it was not a sin. And I wish he just would have taken it one step further, but certainly love conquers hate. Unfortunately, there's just so much hate in this country that we just cannot overcome it. And I think we're doomed unless we do overcome the hate that's going on. I'm just appalled that anybody would feel this way about transgender people. So I'm sorry. We all need to fight this kind of discrimination. Thank you.
Thank you, Jean. Okay, next we have Larry.
I've been in my Bible study for the last several weeks teaching something that I call the elephant in the room, or the elephant in the church. I'm sure everybody knows what that means, topics that nobody wants to talk about, not even in the church. So I have been facilitating a discussion dealing with the elephant in the church, which is homosexuality. It's in the church, always has been in the church, always will be in the church. But in facilitating that discussion, I let it be known up front that this is not a discussion dealing with judgment nor condemnation, but just in trying to come to an understanding. And I had a church member who actually has a niece who is homosexual, and we had her on the program. She called in, and I saw YouTube the other night where a couple of trans people was having some serious regrets and sadness that they had gone through that surgery. And it's not for me to make that call. That's between them. I think when Dwayne Wade and Gabriel Union let that 13-year-old child do it, as opposed to waiting till he at least became 18, that age. You know, so again, we do not consider no trans people to be the enemy of Christianity, and people will use that to try to demean Christianity and try to change the meaning of Christianity and make it look like some kind of a hate group. You know, we have people in Christianity, like all segments of life, who have different points of views. But when
Absolutely, Larry. Would you like to get back on the list?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
okay, great. Okay, we have Cheryl, Beatrice, anyone else? Phyllis. All right, and then Larry. Okay, Cheryl.
Hey, Nancy. I'm speaking because you said probably everybody has an opinion about this. I definitely do. I'm disgusted that, our feelings about it. I'm disgusted by this. This never would have come into my awareness had you not posted this as an article, because I don't pay any attention to that person because he's a hate monger. But because you brought it to my attention, I decided I would go and look at what kind of coverage he has and what kind of popularity he has. It's the most popular show on television, his news program. Over 4 million people have consistently continued to watch it. Fox News has the 3 highest ratings. There's more people watching garden shows, cooking shows than CNN. And what is it, NBCN or something like that is really low on the list of the top. I think it was 122 shows that are watched by Americans. So this is best. I really like what Jean said, and I just don't know the answer to this. I've been open-minded. I have spoken about this with other people. I was a flower fairy when I was younger. I'm from the San Francisco Bay Area and I grew up in flower shops. I have lost 50 of my personal friends, and probably 13 of them were very, very close, that died in the AIDS epidemic. I actually lost most of my friends and then found myself pretty incapable of making a lot of new friends for quite a while, just because that damaged me so much. I did some final caretaking during that time to that horrid disease. So I'm just disgusted, and I'd like to know if it, does anybody have any ideas? I think I always ask that question
Teresa.
on how to fight back.
All right, thank you, Cheryl. We have Beatrice, Phyllis, Larry, and Teresa. Beatrice?
Our Georgia legislature, the law that was passed allows after the age of 18, gender affirming care and hormone therapy and all of that. So that if you got a child that's 14, they're going to struggle for 4 more years. But there are parents who say that when their children are 4 and 5 years old, they know that and the children know that their gender is not in what their external features appear to be. So we're just allowing children to struggle longer and thinking that we're really helping them. My thought has to do with where do we get our information from? There are people who look only at Fox News, who listen to Tucker Carlson as the word, the paragon of virtue and of wisdom. And then I say and so their confirmation bias, they're finding out things that go in line with what they already believe, and they remain in their silos, and then they go down their rabbit holes, and they just, you got a Marjorie Taylor Greene who clearly needs some work in terms of mental health. But then I think about myself. I mean, I listen to NPR, I read the Washington Post, New York Times, the things that I read and look at, our Atlanta Journal Constitution. those are my sources of news. And while they are balanced, I believe they are balanced. Perhaps I am in a way with the Fox people, that I only listen to and listen to and confirm what already goes with what I believe. And the sad thing, though, is that when you hear somebody like Tucker Carlson, when Fox News and all those statistics are absolutely correct about the listenership, that you hang on to that stuff, and you listen to a former president who still believes he won the election or says he does. Where are we going as a nation? How are we going to fix that? How are we going to fix that? How do people open up and get what is the true truth? That's
Perfect, right on time, Beatrice. Okay, we have Phyllis, Larry, Teresa, and Bill. Okay, Phyllis.
Okay, well, so let's talk about transitioning. First of all, there's social transitioning. That is when the person starts to dress as the gender with which they identify. Then there's puberty blockers, which prevents the person from going through puberty to allow for future possible surgeries if they choose those. And the puberty blocker situation is reversible. Then there is top surgery and bottom surgery. And I can go into detail if y'all need me to. I believe those could also be reversed. Also, people are allowed to make choices because they have free will and regret their choices later. Women are allowed to have abortions and maybe regret it, maybe not regret it. Women also have babies and regret that. And I think the number of people who really identify as transgender who regret any part of their transition is very minimal. I also want to say Zaya Wade is a she. She did not have any surgery yet. I just Googled it. If Dwayne Wade was in front of anybody here, I will bet you would refer to her as she in front of her dad. And it was brought up another time where she was brought up in our conversation that her biological mother doesn't approve of all this. Well, her biological mother lost custody of the child. So when you lose custody of your child, you don't get a say. That's just how the law works. I don't know all the details because I don't follow celebrity relationships in depth. I got other things on my mind. And so I just want to say, let's just respect the fact that there are people out there who have changed their gender pronouns. They have a preference. Their parents have a preference. And if you wouldn't say it in front of their daddy, don't be rude and say it here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Phyllis. Okay, we have Larry, Teresa, and Bill. Okay, Larry.
I'm not a doctor and I don't pretend to be one. I know all of the terms. I do know, as I shared last week with my Bible study, I ran down a whole list of congenital birth defects that somebody could be born with. In a whole lot of them. So that means something can go wrong. In the womb, at conception, something can go wrong that will cause a person to be born into the world blind, or deaf, or dumb, can't speak, or with a cleft lip. Things can go wrong. The question I ask in my Bible study, which sometimes goes contrary to some of the opinions, is that are we to dismiss with this whole list of things that can go wrong at birth, congenitally wise? Are we going to dismiss that a person cannot be born into the world with questions of gender? Yes, I believe so. You know, the average, not the average, but many Christians would take the stand, well, God made Adam and Eve and not Adam and Steve. that is the argument they use. Perhaps a long time ago, perhaps I used to use that argument. But there is a certain reality that exists, and we cannot deny that it is real. And so to say that trans people are enemies of Christianity, it's people like Tucker Carlson who are holding on to that January the 6th philosophy and white supremacy and manifest destiny. It's people like him who are in denial, who are the enemy of Christianity and the enemy of America itself. And so please, I just, don't put the church in some kind of a rabbit hole to say that the church is the enemy of trans, or vice versa.
All right, Phyllis has a clarifying question, Larry.
I am generally not sure I understand what you just said. So let me ask my question. Are you leading this Bible study in the hopes of broadening the acceptance in your church for LGBTQIA people?
No, I'm leading the Bible study, and let me say this, I'm facilitating the Bible study. To lead it would present me as an expert, which I'm not. So I'm just facilitating a discussion among my members and those who wish to join. And so that we could come up with try to come up with a better understanding of what has torn America apart.
Okay, thank you, Larry. We have Teresa and then Phil. Beatrice has a clarifying question.
I'm sorry, Larry, I'm just trying to understand about the something went wrong. You're not implying that when young people are born and they desire to transition from their presenting gender, that something has gone wrong, like the congenital issues that you spoke about. Did I misunderstand?
I think it's a congenital issue. I think that's a matter of genes and hormones and stuff that is beyond, beyond my level of, it's not, I would be kind of getting outside of my lane if I tried to say I understand everything there is about genetics and chromosomes and all that other stuff. But yes, I think there are congenital issues that would bring gender issues into question.
Thanks.
All right, no kind of notes. Oh, I'm gonna have a long wrap up. Okay. Teresa is next.
All right, to go in a completely different direction, I didn't listen to the video because I didn't want Tucker Carlson's voice to poison my ears. So I read the article instead, and it just reminds me because, of course, I have HBO Max, and if anybody else does, I invite you to watch Succession. The final season is out, it really started, and that fictional series about a global media family was actually loosely patterned on Rupert Murdoch's family. So it's just like when he's going on trial in real life saying, oh yeah, I know they were lying, basically. I think of the Brian Cox character from Succession. He's the patriarch, and the whole point of the show Succession is that someone younger is going to take over the family business, and Rupert Murdoch is pushing 90 something on his fourth or fifth wife, and I just think, at some point one of his children or someone else in a younger generation is going to take over. So it's just interesting how real life parallels. You just kind of think, well, they must be having discussions about this. This is the Murdochs are a very influential family. And then you got somebody who's really a paid improvisational actor known as Tucker Carlson, who unfortunately has such a large audience who do not realize that he's an improvisational actor. And as much as I can't stand improv, I do believe that it is a useful skill. It is good to know how to ad lib and handle situations and to show flexibility. But to me, this shows the danger of improv. And like you say, there are people who watch Fox News throughout their entire waking hours. So you're saying upwards of 12, 14 some hours and they never change the channel. They
Thank
never
you,
get another
Teresa.
source. You're welcome.
Okay, all right. We have Bill and then we have Phyllis and Larry.
And Fox News, picking up what Therese said, Fox News defense when they're subject to prior suits, their defense was, we're not news, we're entertainment. We can't be judged by news criteria. And Dominion lawsuit goes a long way to exposing that. But I wanted to talk more about an issue we have. Google is one of the perpetrators of a diverse, divided nation, because Google looks at what you read, and it tells you, it suggests other things that support your opinion. So if you're a liberal, Googling stem cell research, you will get things that support the usefulness of stem cell research. And if you're a right-wing conservative into Google stem cell research, you will get articles about it. It goes against the nature of their religion. So, and we now have MSNBC, which Cindy and I watch, and CNN is somewhere on that pale, but not as liberal as MSNBC. And we have Fox News on the other side. And when I was young, we had Walter Cronkite. We all heard the same news, and now we hear a completely different version of reality. And I was shocked and disgusted with the version of reality that Tucker Carlson's spews. But part of that is because of Google searches. And Google didn't do that to promote division in this country. They do it to promote, make money.
Okay,
And,
thank you, Bill.
oh, okay, so it's fine.
Okay, all right. Next we have Phyllis and then Larry.
So as I put in the chat, Google is free. So I Googled the word congenital, and it is medically, it is a condition or a trait present at birth. It may be the result of genetic or non-genetic factors. So note that there's not a positive or negative spin on that definition. It's just is. And if one's religion teaches one that God knows us in our mother's wombs, then we have to assume that how we're born is not a sin, not wrong. Maybe a person would want to change something about how they were born, like they might want to get their hair lip, or their parents might want to get their hair lip surgically altered. I know there's doctors who go to third world countries and offer that surgery for people who want it. I also know that every time I see a person with Down syndrome, I feel joy, because normally they look like they're the happiest, most innocent beings you're ever going to see. And I love having conversations with them. I just think they're precious. And I think that trans people are beautiful in all of their broad spectrum of ways of being. I think they bring so much beauty to the world and are a gift that we could learn from if we open our hearts and minds to learning. Thank you.
Thank you, Phyllis. Next we have Larry. Cindy has a question. Phyllis, unmute. You have to unmute.
Phyllis, don't you think that that is the answer? Open our hearts and minds to different things. That's the answer to so much of our troubles in this world.
Amen.
Not only religion, but race.
And hallelujah.
Yes, okay, thank you. Okay, Larry.
I just wanted to make a comment on the gun issue. It was brought up at the beginning of the conversation. But just very briefly, there is a condition called congenital adrenal hyperplasia, where a child is born with some type of hormone insufficiency. And that hormone insufficiency can cause a boy to have feminine traits or a girl to have masculine traits. And I knew a man who was very hard on his son for having those feminine traits until he came in contact with this birth condition called congenital adrenal hyperplasia. But on the matter of guns, background checks are not going to change our gun problems. Sometimes the Republicans and Democrats and all push that as the solution. But a person could have a perfect background check today and snap tomorrow. And so what did the background check profit? And many other people, the girl that killed those kids in Nashville, though she had been having some kind of mental therapy, but you're going to deny everybody that's having some kind of mental therapy the right to own a gun. She could have passed the background check, So I remember when we were little kids coming up around 13 years old down in Jacksonville, Florida, and there used to be some shootings taking place amongst Black men. And we would always joke amongst ourselves that the police and the white judges and all don't care because it's just Blacks eliminate more Blacks. And so some people don't want gun control because the culture and the climate we have now, it's going to give more Black kids access to guns, and you're going to have more Black kids killing more Black kids. So something like Sandy Hook is just considered by others to be collateral damage. It's sad.
Well, that's not good. Okay, Larry, we got two more people that raised their hand, Bill and then Beatrice. Okay, so Bill and Beatrice, and then we'll go to the wrap up, okay? All right, Bill.
We, in Greece, we know from personal experience, we had a friend who had a shotgun. She would go, every winter, she would go out and kill a wild boar. But she said every 5 years, she has to talk to a doctor to find out she's sane enough to own a gun, even though she has this antique shotgun that she uses just to kill wild boars. So in Greece, they monitor people who have guns and periodically determine whether they're still sane enough to own a gun, which I think is a good idea. I don't think any single solution like background checks is the answer. It's a combination. And we certainly should have banned assault weapons like Joe Biden wants to do. The ban was successful. It was first introduced during the Bill Clinton era, and then during the George W. Bush era, they let the ban elapse. And when the ban went into effect, there was a great reduction of mass shootings. And when the ban was lapsed, there was significant increase in mass shooting. So I think there's a whole combination of measures, but guns are just out of hand in this country.
For
Thank
sure. Thank you. Beatrice.
Yeah,
And then we'll
I'm
move to Kevin.
right with Bill, talking about the gun thing, because the argument that people make is called the futility argument. If we do this, it's not gonna really work. If you do that, that's not gonna stop it from killing. If you do that, we had legislation introduced by one of our Democratic legislators. She's a pediatrician, and one of them was the background check. 3-day waiting period, and the other was called a pediatric safety storage bill. And what she said was that the people need to be required to safely store their weapons in their homes. None of it even got a hearing with the Republicans because they are tied to a misunderstanding of what the Second Amendment is and was. And other countries have, if you have a license for a weapon, it is for a specific kind. Like in England, if you get a license, it's because you have a gun to shoot rabbits. If you have we don't have any of that. We are tied to the futility of, well, the guns are here. The Second Amendment says everybody can have a gun everywhere, anywhere, because King George is coming and get your weapons, and you got to mount a militia with your muskets. And that's what that Second Amendment was about. We've got to do better with the gun thing. I'm right with Bill. We know one thing is going to stop it, but we cannot have the futility argument of, well, if we do that, we're going to take guns from law-abiding. All that is ridiculous. And I think the problem is that a gun is a phallic symbol. Phallic symbols are tied to masculinity, and we don't want to take nobody's penis. And it's just pitiful. It is sad that we are killed children. The death of children in this country is gun violence. You hear me? A child 5 years old just shot yesterday in Atlanta, shot their little sister 3 or 4 months old dead. So, I mean, it's crazy. We got to do better.
We do. All right, thank you. Okay, it is 11:08, and I think it's good enough time to move towards the wrap up. And the people who have not spoken get the full 2 minutes, and it's okay to pass if you would like. So we'll start with Marion.
This was a very timely topic, as most of our topics are, but this really irks me. You all have heard me say this a dozen or more times. If we human beings would just accept other human beings who don't necessarily follow our mode of conduct of what we think a man should be a man, a woman should be a woman. A transgender person is a human being in my eyes, first and foremost. What Tucker Carlson is doing or has done or is doing, looking at this title, says the trans movement is a natural enemy of Christianity. You think about what we said in our earlier comments about Christianity. There are these people you call Bible thumpers, and they're rigid in their thinking, in their motivations. And I remember a comment said some years ago by a person, it was broadcast, some of you may remember it, if you've lived as long as I have, about how they were going to beat the homosexuality out of people when this first started coming to the forefront about people being homosexual or gay. Transgender people or human beings. Leave those people alone. Let them live their truth. Let them live their lives. And I'd like to, in the name of heaven or in the name of God, however you want to take it or not take it, just leave these people alone and let them live their lives. You can't beat anything out of anybody. Killing is not only against the law, it's a sin, or you can say it's a sin and it's against the law. Leave the people alone and let them live their lives. They're human beings. They're not hurting anybody. Doggone it.
Thank you, Marion. Okay. Next we have Glenn. Glenn, are you there? Okay, maybe next we don't have one. Oh, there he is.
Yeah, well, sometimes I don't want to get into it, to that kind of a subject, because I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. And also, I agree with something Larry said about how, some of the leaders in this organization forbid talking about religion, but when it's convenient for them, they'll talk about it. They take all kind of privileges that they tell other people don't do. So y'all got to be a little more consistent. But I also want to correct something that Larry said, that Jesus was a Christian. No, he never was a Christian. He said that I didn't come to change anything. I come to bring back what Elijah and Moses had brought, and what the Jews had strayed away from, the true word of God. He didn't come to bring a new religion, but to reform the religion that was already in place. That's about all I have to say.
Okay, well, thank you, Glenn. Next we have Louise.
So the Dwayne Wade thing, yeah, they did not have surgery. It did not have surgery. There's no surgery involved, and you can look that up. It's and that leads me on to the Fox News and NPR. Beatrice said something really cool about how she listens to NPR, and is that just as bad as always listening to Fox? Because I too am an NPR listener, and but the thing about that is I've researched some of the things they've said and found out it to be true, and then now I just trust them. I trust what they say, whereas Fox News watchers, I don't think do any of their own research. They just completely blindly believe what comes out of those people's mouths, including the Dwayne Wade's stuff. Anyway, you need to do your own research. Dwayne Wade was a great basketball player, by the way. Just have to say, he is one of my heroes. And a lovely man. Lovely man. So, and guns. About the guns, yeah, background checks, of course. You've got to do background checks, mental, if they've gone into, how many times have you heard that the young boy was taken in to have some mental counseling, whatever, and yet there he is with a gun. If there's any background of them having any kind of history of mental illness of any kind, yeah, you can't give that person a gun, for goodness sakes. That's just nuts. And also, of course, ban assault weapons. That's a definite one. I think that's about it. There was just too much. I was just kind of overwhelmed with how much this affected me. And so I basically ended up not saying much or having much more to say. Sorry.
That's okay. Well, thank you, Louise. Okay, next we have Amal.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, what's interesting, Tucker Carlson, he jumped straight on the LGBTQ issue, but he never once mentioned the fact that this person was white. He just automatically jumped on that. So if you want to identify the person, why wasn't there the fact that they were white not just as important as the fact that they were LGBTQ? I just thought that part was quite interesting. This woman that went into this school and did what she did should not be a reflection on the LGBT community, because that person didn't have an LGBTQ agenda. They just went up in there and just decided to start shooting people. Now, if we was talking about the guy who went to South Carolina and that church, he had a white supremacist agenda. Then you can talk about the fact that this person was white. But in this situation, this person didn't have an agenda that reflected the LGBT community. So I don't think that the LGBTQ community should be condemned for the actions of this one person, because this person didn't have that agenda in mind. When they went into that school and did what they did, it was horrific, it was terrible, and it should not be a reflection on that community, what this person did. As far as Dwayne Wade and his son is concerned, yeah, I mean, if I would, and if I was in front of his daddy, if I was in front of his mama, if I was in front of his stepmama, I would tell them that you have a son. Now, how that son chooses to identify is another conversation, but no, I wouldn't have no problems with telling him that in his face that he got a son. So I don't see what him not being present had to do with the fact that a person would or would not tell him that. If he was in my face or if I was in his face, I'd tell him that he got a son and his son got a mental problem for wanting to be a girl.
All right, your 2 minutes is up.
Okay.
Okay, not to cut you off. But
No, if it's up, it's up. That's cool.
It's up. Okay, thank you. Okay, we move on to the next group of final wrap up, which is 1 minute. And I will call you in the order that I see you on the screen. And that we will start with Teresa.
Sorry, I had both mics muted. So thank you for highlighting another improvisational act by Tucker Carlson. His two motivations was like, how do I protect guns, and talking about this, mass shooting. Oh, I know. It was a trans person and they went to a Christian school. I'll say that trans people are the enemy of Christianity. I'll hit two birds with one stone, and bada boom, he's still got his millions of viewers and money. It's not anything. It's kind of, I mean, if you just view everybody on Fox News as improvisational actors and they're given something like that, they're like, okay, quick, what can I do with this? And that's what he did. I don't think he absolutely believes at all that trans people are the enemy of Christians. He just had to combine that with this is the fact that it was a Christian school, the location. And, when Trump was president, I just kept thinking, oh, the Republicans are acting like it's not a crime to commit a crime. And now it's like, oh, they're trying to weaponize guns. The problem's not the guns, it's the this, that, and the other. So they're pretty consistent.
Thank you, Teresa.
You're welcome.
Okay, next we have Larry.
There's a reason it's called the Old Testament and the Old Covenant and the New Testament and the New Covenant, because Jesus came to usher out the old and to bring in a new relationship with God. So the law and the prophets was no longer sufficient that mankind could be saved. I mentioned the term collateral damage a minute ago, but when you deal with manifest destiny, you know that a people will stop at nothing to accomplish their ends. So it was nothing when George Bush invaded Iraq, and when schools and hospitals were bombed, hundreds of thousands of Iraqis were killed. That was considered collateral damage, because the great America had to accomplish its mission of democratizing the world. And so, yes, when Sandy Hook occurred and people could not get on board immediately that something need to be done relative to guns, and if the Republicans or anybody else would have stepped in to do something relative to gun control, that would have impeded on their manifest destiny. So we continue to have all these guns floating around, and as long as manifest destiny is on the table, guns ain't going nowhere. Thank you.
Thank you. Jean?
Well, my eyes have certainly been opened. I too watch NPR, and I just am appalled at the amount of the influence that someone like Tucker Carlson obviously has on millions of people. And it's very depressing. Also, the fact that we can't do anything about gun control. Apparently in Tennessee, there really isn't any gun control at all. Anybody can get a gun. They don't have any checks or anything. From what I did research that, I thought. But it's just, if we don't turn around, we're doomed. I'm sorry. But anyway, thank you for bringing this all to my attention. I've been living in a cozy little world, much cozier than is out there apparently. So, and everybody stay safe and healthy.
All right, thank you, Jean.
Thank you, Nancy.
Thank you. Cindy?
Also from this cozy little world. It's quite remarkable, the range of hatred out there, scary. In teaching, and again, I only taught little bitty people, they come in open to it all and open to other people of all shades and backgrounds and handicaps. I wish we didn't lose the acceptance. But again, our culture kind of wants you to define people and put them in boxes, which is sad. So we got to work on each of us meeting people with an open mind and an accepting mind. And I wish I had answers. I've given up on answers. Thanks for the discussion. It was valuable. It was sad, actually.
Thank you, Cindy. Next we have Beatrice.
Wow, really quickly, when Robert Kennedy was killed, I was in my 30s, I think, and people began to talk about guns. We have to get rid of guns. And how long ago was that? Have we done something then? Deborah Prothro Stiff used to be the public health physician in Massachusetts, again, about 25, 30. She talked about treating gun violence as a public safety issue. If we did that, how much change would there be? Can't seem to do any of that. But we remain hopeful, but we don't want to be distracted by things like Tucker Carlson and all that. When all the issues of this country, we've got poverty, we've got healthcare issues. We want to be sure that we hold people accountable to working on those issues and stop fighting our children. And this was a great discussion. So good to see you all. Wish I could see you more. Thanks, Nancy.
Thank you. Next we have Bill.
A fundamental tenet of Judaism in what's called the Old Testament, they call it the Torah, is that love thy neighbor as thyself. That preaches against hatred. And another fundamental tenet, the 10 Commandments were carried on by Christianity. And another tenet is thou shalt not kill. So this hatred is fundamentally against the teachings of Judaism and Christianity. And that's what it is. So thank you, Nancy, for sharing it. Although we were appalled, had to listen to Tucker Carlson.
Thank you, Bill. Okay, Cheryl.
Well, it's nice to spend time with all of you. Everyone here, even though our opinions may differ and we may have different feelings on this, I think we're a special breed. My mom had a friend that turned 105 this week. And this comes to my thinking because I just did the math and it was 160 years since 1880. Wait, that doesn't make any sense. Yeah, 1863, the heart of the Civil War. I'm reading right now about a relative of mine that was an abolitionist. My sister brought him to mind because I thought everybody really came from more Southern roots. And he fought from Fort Sumner and is actually a famous person that Mark Twain and Walt Whitman used some of his writings about. He was writing about the atrocity of war. I have to sometimes put the book down because it gets to be too much. Reading these passages about the atrocities of the Civil War, you would have thought people would have learned then. And here we are. So, you know, everybody, I guess, give yourself a little pat on the back for being peace loving, thinking about these things and having good hearts, and have a good week.
Thank you, Cheryl. Okay, and lastly, we have Phyllis.
I wondered if when I was going to get called. Well, so when I was in seminary, I want to say this, we did not call it the Old Testament, we called it the Hebrew Bible. And the Jewish people do call it other things, because to call it old versus our new is to disregard the belief system of people who are still existing on the planet. And it was taught to us that it's sort of anti-Semitic to do that, to call it the Old Testament. And I just want to briefly read part of something that was shared by a pastor friend of mine, if it would stop jumping. It says 10 things you're actually saying when you ignore someone's gender pronouns. 1, I know you better than you know yourself. I would rather hurt you repeatedly than change the way I speak about you. Your sense of safety is not important to me. Your identity isn't real and shouldn't be acknowledged. I want to teach everyone around me to disrespect you. Offending you is fine if it makes me feel more comfortable. I can hear you talking, but I'm not really listening. Being who you truly are is an inconvenience to me. I would prefer it if you stopped being honest with me. I am not an ally, a friend, or someone you can trust. And I would also say to do that is to deny their humanity and their sovereignty as a human being and their free will. Just accept people for how they want to be identified. It doesn't hurt any of us to do that. Thank you, Nancy.
Thank you, Phyllis. Okay. Well, this is my wrap up, and I usually just say, you know, thank you for the discussion, and it brought about a lot to think about and so forth. But there was so much to say. I mean, I wrote so many notes. I can't possibly go through all of the notes. I mean, I could, but we'd be here till about noon. But what I do want to say, one thing, is that Fox, MSNBC, and CNN are entertainment. They are. They are opinions. If you sit there, they get on one topic and they talk about each host every hour, just rehashes, or maybe they come up with something different. Sometimes a new bit of information, but they pretty much rehash the same topic all day long. And by the time we get to Rachel Maddow in the evening, I'm sick of it. Okay. But it's entertainment. And when I really want to listen to real news, I listen to CBS, NBC, or NPR. That's real news. And even sometimes they could be kind of suspect. So you really don't know into these days where the truth really lies, because those network news, they're for ratings, who can get the top ratings, who can get the most viewers. And just like Fox has proved, that they will say anything to get the top viewers, and that's what they do. Okay, it's all about money, right? It's all about money. Okay. The next thing that I wanted to talk about, yes, we do. We listen to news that reaffirms our beliefs. We all do it. I'm guilty of it. I listen to I started listening to WWL because I wanted to listen to a counter view. They're primarily conservative. They kind of moved a little bit more center. And over the years that I've been listening to them, they're not as conservative as they once were. I think to gain a larger audience, they got a little more center. But I'll listen to Tommy in the morning. I listen to Scoot begrudgingly in the afternoon, but I definitely don't listen to him. He got to go. I can't listen to that. That's just too conservative, too stuck in the mud. I can't do it. And so by that, I think that, I am guilty of being biased because he just doesn't affirm what my beliefs are and my opinion and my perspectives are. He truly lost me with the the border crisis, when he accused mothers of breaking the law by trying to gain entry to the country, and using their children to do so. And I just felt as though if a mother would travel hundreds of miles not knowing what she's facing when she gets there, she would never put her children in danger like that unless what she was trying to get away from was even worse. And if you don't have compassion for that, then you are just not my kind of person. I don't want to listen. There's nothing really that you can say to me. I don't want to hear it. But to get to the subject of what we really were talking about, about transgender, the two things, transgender and Christianity. Getting back to Newell Norman, one day he was on some kind of rant. I don't know. He was just being extremely negative, and I just couldn't hear it. And I turned to my office coworker, and I turned him off. And I said, "If you want to know why I turned him off," I said, "because he's too negative." And I said, "I'll give you an example. I believe if there is, if there's a higher being, God, that God is a loving, forgiving, protective, inclusive God. That's my God. It may not be his God, but it's my God. And I want my radio personality to be the same way." Okay. And that's how I feel about this transgender issue. And to bring the point together, I also work with an organization, NAMI, as some of you know, and it is the National Alliance on Mental Illness. And I've learned so much. I've been working with this organization since 2015. And I've learned so much about mental health and the misconceptions about mental health. You see somebody pushing a shopping cart down the street wearing a Parker and it's 80 degrees outside and they're looking up, talking to somebody in the air, and you just like, why are they doing this? This is not a behavioral choice. It's not. This is a medical condition. And one of the things that I do, one of my missions to do, not only with the race, but with NAMI, is to educate people that this is a medical condition, not a behavioral choice. And we need to educate our elected officials, the medical community, our educational people, that this is a medical condition. It is not a behavioral choice. Okay, so the same thing when it comes to sexual identity, to sexual orientation. This is who I am. This is how I was born. Okay, there are definitely outside factors that can influence these things. But, we are who we are. And if we could be more accepting, inclusive, that some people are different, the world would be much better. We'd all be much better. There wouldn't be so much hate. There wouldn't be so much divisiveness. If we could all just accept that we are who we are. All right, so we can stop recording.